Hello, hello. Welcome back to Peak Northwest, an outdoors and travel podcast by the Oregonian and Oregon Live, dedicated to the adventure and exploration of our beautiful Pacific Northwest. I'm Jamie Hale.
And I'm Chiara Profena. And together we take you to some of the most beautiful and interesting destinations in our region, discussing where to go, what to do, and places to see. And today we are jumping into an Oregon summer, which is arguably the best season here. What do you think about that?
I mean, with apologies to spring, an Oregon summer, you just can't beat it, right? I mean, The weather here is absolutely perfect, unless you get a heat wave, which does happen. That's fine. And there's just like so much to do here. So many places to see all around the state. I mean, you have the ocean, you have the mountains, you have the desert, a little hot in the summer, but you have it there. You have the forest. And I mean, like all the cities and the small towns and the roadside attractions, just like there's an embarrassment of riches in Oregon, which is maybe the only problem about this. And the thing is, there's just no way you can see it all or even like scratch the surface in one single summer here.
Yeah. And so we kind of wanted to get a couple recommendations and see what a couple people think about scratching that surface. So today, to share some of their summer recommendations, we have two of our summer interns here at the Oregonian. So I'm super excited to have Eddie Binford Ross, who's covering politics and education, and Kimberly Cortez, who's covering breaking news and public safety. So Eddie and Kimberly, it is great to have y'all both on here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we are super excited to just chat, get to know y'all a little bit more, and maybe just for a little context, could y'all tell us a bit about your history with Oregon summers? And Eddie, let's start with you.
Yeah, so I grew up in Salem. I grew up in a family that we're all avid hikers. We spend a lot of time in the Cascades, at the beach. And so I have spent basically every summer of my life so far exploring all the different facets that Oregon has to offer.
That's awesome. And Kimberly, you have a bit of a different background, right?
Yeah, so I grew up in California and I moved to Oregon 4 years ago when I came here for college. But I've spent every summer since then here. So that's like 4 summers now. I think the first summer that I lived here for, there was like an extreme heat wave, and that was like that was kind of like a shocking thing about Oregon summers for me. I was like, I did not know it got this hot here. So thank God I have an AC unit. So
Yeah, not usually that hot.
Yeah, definitely not.
But I mean, I remember, I don't know if it's the same heat wave that I'm thinking of when it got to like 115 or 120 or something.
Yeah, I think that's the one.
The heat dome.
Yeah.
Terrifying words. But normally, of course, we have that really nice weather. But, you see people when it gets hot always escaping to the coast or always escaping to Mount Hood. A lot of different, like any body of water, right? I feel like is where you're trying to go. I am curious, so because you two have some experience here in Oregon in the summertime, like, do you have like a go-to part of the state? Like, are you beach people? Are you mountain people? Kimberly, what is your first, like, what is your go-to area?
Because I grew up, sort of near the beach in California, I'm always attracted to water during the summer. So I think my go-to spot is always like somewhere along a river, any sort of water. Like, I just want to be near that. But I also really like to stay in the city just because there are some good, I feel like also over the years, there have been more and more good cooling hubs, like places you can be in where there's AC and it's still nice to hang out. So water and then just being in the city, I think.
Yeah, Eddie, what about you?
I think it's hard to beat the Oregon coast in the summer. I think that little bit of a reduction in temperature makes it the like perfect getaway. So that's my favorite place to go for like summer hikes and stuff. I also have to say I'm partial to Oregon winters. And so the Cascades are my place in the winter. So it's nice to get some different scenery heading to the coast for the summers.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety in Oregon's landscape. So it's nice that you can do both in a year. I'm a big fan of that as well. And so kind of jumping in, since Eddie, you're more towards Willamette Valley, you have a little bit of outdoor stuff on your radar, some of your recommendations, I understand. Can you tell us a bit about what one of your top recommendations for a summer in Oregon would be?
Definitely. I think that one of the best summer hikes that you can do is hiking to the Devil's Peak Fire Lookout, which is out near Mount Hood. It's this super cool decommissioned fire lookout that you don't have to make a reservation for. If you take this cool creek trailhead, which is right near Rhododendron, Oregon, it's a 4.1 or so mile hike in, and you're hiking through this like quintessential Oregon forest, these huge stately conifers that are just draped in moss. And then every so often you'll get peaks of Mount Hood and various other features of the area. And then eventually, after 4 miles, you emerge from the trees to this old fire lookout that's been decommissioned for the past like 30 years or so. And you can like climb the steps up there and get this beautiful framed view of Mount Hood, and then the hills around it. And you can make it a day hike, or you can bring and do dispersed camping up there. The fire lookout isn't maintained, but there are volunteers that come up there a lot. And so there are tables there. You can play card games. There's this awesome like set of books that all of these people who have hiked up there have signed. And so you can hear all these great stories or you can read all these great stories about like people who got proposed to up there, or people who met someone from the other side of the state or the other side of the country and became fast friends in an evening at this fire lookout that they both just happened to hike up to.
It sounds like you have a lot of experience here. Is this something that you grew up maybe going to over the years, or is it like somewhere you go with your family often?
It's not. I came across it just a few years ago.
Okay.
But I think that it offers something. Fire lookouts are so fun, but I feel like they're really hard to make a reservation for. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of stumbled across it on the internet, and it has become one of my favorite hikes.
Eddie, to be clear, is this a fire lookout that like you can stay the night in, or is this one you just sort of go to?
The Forest Service says you can't. You can go inside. They decided that you couldn't. In 2021, I wrote an article about this place for the Statesman Journal, and everything online so that you could stay the night. And then I reached out to the Forest Service, and they like quietly edited their website to specify that you could not stay the night. But it is outfitted with, there are like living supplies inside. So you can go inside. You're just not supposed to spend the night because it's not like up to safety code.
Fair enough. That seems reasonable. Yeah, I do love that area. That's in the Salmon Huckleberry Wilderness, which is like the closest wilderness you have to Portland, up I guess on or near Mount Hood. There's so many places to hike there. I've not been to that one, but it's like such a good hike as you're describing it, and there's like so many good places to go. So like if you're trying to explore that area, that's like one of a dozen just within a few miles of that area that you could go and hike around the mountains forever.
Absolutely. It is a beautiful area, and Mount Hood is so Oregon. And right. I feel like we often associate Mount Hood with the winter and skiing and snowboarding. And so it's really nice to be able to experience that area in the summer in a different way.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think there's just a plethora of things you can do out there too. I think we're going to get into that probably on another episode, Mount Hood area activities. But hiking is definitely one of those quintessential Oregon summer things. I know Jamie has a lot of experience, probably a lot to say about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just when the meadows open up and you have the wildflowers that start to bloom in the summertime on the side of the mountain, especially Mount Hood. I mean, like the thing is, I mean, it's got a lot of good snow cover for a lot of the year, but once that snow melts, you can really get high up there. hike sort of with views of the glaciers, or you can, go to these wildflower meadows, or just get these really good sweeping views, like from Devil's Peak, that a great view looking at Mount Hood across the trees. Of course, there's all these lakes you can hike to, and I mean, just it's so much to explore and see on so many different sides and facets of Mount Hood. Mm-hmm. That's the cool thing. I love going on different sides of the mountain and getting a different look at it. We have this look we have of Mount Hood from Portland, but then you go around to the north side and it's like, oh, that's a different looking mountain. And you go around to the east side and it looks, again, totally different. And I just love kind of rotating around the mountain in that way.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of options to get up there. And any sort of recommendations on maybe how to go about hiking in this area during the summer, either Eddie or Jamie, if you have any thoughts on that?
I think, one option is that you can make it a day hike. This trail is probably an hour 15 without traffic from here in Portland. It is very accessible if you just want to take a weekend day and head out there for the day. There's also a lot of dispersed camping you can do in the area. And there are a lot of places that you can stay if you want to splurge a little and get a hotel room, because it has all this tourism infrastructure from the winter time. You can keep using that in the summer.
That's great advice. I'm always a safety guy too. Bring a good pair of hiking shoes, no flip-flops. Bring your first aid kit, lots of water, especially in the summertime. Bug spray too. A lot of these meadows and these hikes on Mount Hood get buggy in the summer. That's true of any of the Cascade Peaks. You get those snowmelt mosquitoes, and they are no joke.
Yeah, can imagine.
So bring your bug spray, bring your water, bring your shoes, bring your first aid. Just make sure you got your day pack packed well.
Right. And so turning topics a little bit, Kimberly, you have one of your recommendations is kind of getting your steps in and exploring. Tell me a bit about that as a recommendation for a summer here.
Yeah, I mean, I spent the majority of my time in Oregon as a broke college student and also with no car. So I was either forced to walk around places or use public transit. Both are great options, I think, in pretty much any city in Oregon, because they're quite small in comparison to other cities. But especially in Portland, I feel like you can go to different neighborhoods and really see a lot of what it has to offer by just simply walking around. I came back from a trip to New York, and in New York, you're walking everywhere. And so I came back and I was like, why don't I just apply that mindset here? So I've been going on afternoon walks, trying to just hit 10,000 steps. And you'd be surprised by how much you're able to see in the city by just blocking out an hour or so. And it's just a great way to find, small little local gems that you might not otherwise find if you're driving or seeing the city in other ways. And I think it's pretty accessible for most people. You don't need a ton of money unless you're spending it on the shops that you're finding or anything. But there's so many parks too, so you can do so many walks in just parks and see so much. And oftentimes you can find free events that way too. There's so many free events in the parks in Portland, I feel in the summer. So I feel walking around, just getting to know your neighborhood really allows you to see a lot, and it's fun. Bring a friend, it's always great to catch up over a nice walk.
Kimberly, what are some of the gems you found while walking, whether it's a park or an event or a cool shop? Hit us with some recommendations.
So I live in the Central East Side, and I've been taking my walks kind of east. And so I remember taking this one walk one time, and I found a vegan cheese shop, and then a little small library. And I'm a big foodie, I think, so that's another plus of walking around in different neighborhoods is I would walk around and find different restaurants or coffee shops, and I'd be like, oh my gosh, like I haven't been here before. I need to come here, but I'm near a fire on the mountain, and so that's kind of always my go-to spot as well. When I'm like walking, I'm like, okay, time to loop around, come back to the fire on the mountain. That's a perfect summer meal too, wings and a beer. So
not wrong.
I love days like that where I'm like, okay, I've got like $30. This is going to be like my Saturday. What can I do with that? And it's like, cool. I found like, the $6 burrito, or I don't know if burritos cost $6 anymore, but I remember at one point finding, no, you're shaking your head.
No.
Or like I'll go to the record shop, and look for like some cheap used records, or like, you just like finding stuff and having, I don't know, it's also a little game I like to play sometimes of just like, what can I see? How much can I do without having a big expensive day out?
Right. And a lot of things just don't show up on maps anymore for some reason. I've realized that, especially where I live too, in like downtown Portland, a lot of things will just pop up, and you gotta know, you gotta be walking around the area to figure it out. And so have you taken that walking trend anywhere outside of Portland? Have you maybe visited any other cities in Oregon that have been really walkable, or what have you thought of that?
I've been to Central Oregon before, Bend area, and that's also a beautiful place to walk around because there's so much nature. But I've also walked around the coast, and there's nothing better than walking up and down the coast just on the sand.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's just so much fun to see things from, I guess, like a more local perspective too, when you are in those places that you're not quite familiar with, like just seeing things just from a local point of view, I think is quite nice.
The small town, doing that thing you're talking about in small towns especially is so great. That's when I travel for work and I'm in a small town, I'm like, okay, let me just find the core downtown area and just walk around and pop my head into this art gallery or that little shop. That's how you see weird stuff and meet weird people. I've met some of like really, I guess weird is, I mean that in a good way, interesting things and interesting people, and see the most interesting little shops. And I found some of my favorite little places on the coast or in other small towns in Oregon by doing that. I think that's a great practice, and I love that you're doing that.
Yeah, I feel like especially in the city, like it's easy to forget that there's just so many things to do just by walking around and seeing what's in your neighborhood. So I think, and it doesn't have to be for that long, just even 20 minutes, like you can really see a lot of what's going on, find local, like in neighborhoods, there's like the local little free libraries and stuff. That's also a fun thing that's in most neighborhoods, like seeing what people are reading, just even in your neighborhood.
And so you kind of took us a little bit to the coast out there, and I know, Eddie, you have some sort of coastal recommendations, if I'm right on that.
Yes, I do. So for a little bit of context, like I said, I grew up hiking, but my family kind of went crazy during COVID, and we started, my parents both were not working nearly as much as they had been before COVID, and so we tried to do as much hiking as we could. And we did a ton of hiking along the Pacific Crest Trail in Oregon. And then that kind of got boring. We're like, we've seen the huge highlights of the Pacific Crest Trail in Oregon, and it's gorgeous and it's fantastic. But we were looking for something different. And so my dad and I stumbled across the Oregon Coast Trail. And this is a gorgeous trail that stretches the entire length of the Oregon coast. And there are some really incredible, I feel like they're kind of hidden gems. Like everyone knows the big cities along the coast, and the big like state parks along the coast, but those little hikes in between you don't always think about. So one of my favorites is that you hike from Beverly Beach State Park 12 miles down to Newport City. And it feels like a long hike, but most of it is beach walking. You see several of the big lighthouses along the Oregon coast. there are these really rad rock formations that have come about by erosion around Beverly Beach, which is where, when I hiked it, I started at Beverly Beach and then hiked down to Newport. You could do it the other way too. And there is one place along this trail that you have to time with the tides. It's a few miles in, so if you start hiking around low tide, you'll be totally fine. There's this one point on the hike a few miles in where you have to hike through this hole in the wall, and you can only get through it. It's like literally a hole in the stone, and you can only get through it at a lowish tide, or else the waves come in and it's completely submerged. And so you have to hit it at a lower tide, just start hiking from Beverly Beach around low tide, and you'll be totally fine. And then you get on this beautiful little secluded beach that's only accessible through the hole in the wall or down this like kind of muddy trail that you're going to scramble up. But there's hardly anyone there. There are all these old, like gnarled trees, and it's just gorgeous. And I think that this hike kind of captures all the best things that the Oregon coast has to offer, because you get beach walks, you get lighthouses, you get some hiking in the trees, you get this really cool hole in the wall, and then you eventually end up in Newport City. You can hop on out and get some food in Newport. We got clam chowder when I did it.
What's not to like about all of that?
Yeah.
It sounds amazing. Yes. I love that you did this. The love of the Oregon Coast Trail, it's such a great spot to go find, like you said, these under the radar hikes. Have you considered, Eddie, doing like a through hike on the Oregon Coast Trail?
I would love to. It is on my list of things I want to do when I graduate. When I have a free summer, I think it would be incredible to do the entire trail. I would like them to be a little more complete, because there are still pretty significant sections that you have to hike along the roadway that the trail just isn't fully built yet. But it is on my bucket list.
I think you're totally right about that. That's, once they get more of these complete trails or offer more safe walking paths for people, that's what's always kind of stopped me from dreaming about that, is like, hiking for miles and miles alongside like the shoulder of 101 on the coast. No, I've heard of people who do the through hike of like crossing river mouths by like flagging down fishermen and just like paying them $20 to take them across the river. Yes. It's a whole different adventure than just like being on a hiking trail. But there's something about that's really cool, and something about that, it makes me also go like, I don't know that I'm ready for that kind of adventure. But I love that you're finding these pieces of it. I think that's a really cool way to go about it.
Absolutely. There are a bunch of really cool day hikes that you can make of it, or short overnight hikes that I think are really great ways to see a slightly different side of the coast that isn't just your big, beautiful state parks and those beaches outside of Pacific City and Newport and your bigger cities on the coastline.
Yeah. And I love that you pop out into some of these cities too as you're going. Yes. There's obviously so many cities along the Oregon coast that you can really jump in and explore while you're at it, get the best of both worlds. I love doing like a hike into a city, into having a really good lunch, like you were saying.
Yeah. And like Kimberly was talking about hiking around or just walking around cities, those cities along the Oregon coast have so many great little shops and little events that are happening that you can explore. There are always really cool, farmers markets going on, or events down at the beach. And there are all those like cool glass shops and different things. So those are really fun places to just walk around in the summer as well.
And kind of going on the foodie train here, there's definitely a lot of good food on the coast. And I know, Kimberly, your recommendations kind of centering around like the food and bar scene, right?
Yes. I spent pretty much all of last summer just going bar hopping around Portland. But I think this summer my goal is to definitely try some of Oregon's wine country. There's so many places that are great for that here. especially in places that I think I'm not really familiar with too, like in the Willamette Valley or just more centrally in the state. I'm looking forward to maybe exploring some of that this summer. But you know, similar to what I was talking about earlier with just walking around your neighborhoods, you can discover so much by just like seeing what your local bars are in your neighborhood, or exploring a neighborhood through its bar scene. I think is quite cool. It really tells you a lot about what the locals like. And because there's so many good streets here in Portland specifically, with just kind of strips of just different bars, I think it can be really exciting thing to do with friends. And there's like a growing like non-alcoholic bar scene too. Non-alcoholic bar scene here too. So, you don't have to drink, but it is fun when you do it with friends.
Yeah, I like what you said about showing you like the community that goes to that bar, because I think here in Portland too, there's so many like third spaces in a lot of these bars that have centered around community. Like they'll have like craft nights and like, dating at these places, or you'll be able to do like movie nights and, game nights. And there's so many bars that really center around that sort of finding your third space, finding a community there.
What I love to do is to find a sort of a theme of sorts to go find different places. Like we did last summer, we did, I guess for work, we did a corn dog search, the best corn dog in Portland. And that naturally took us to a lot of bars, places that I had not been to before. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh wow, the Tulip Shop Tavern, which has a great corn dog, is also a really great little spot. Got a great back deck area. And we learned about all kinds of places just by like checking out all the different corn dog spots around town.
Yeah, definitely.
I like what you said about kind of finding a theme. I think something that helps me is I love to look at what like local reporters are like, making for their guides for like best bars in Portland, or like best bars in this neighborhood. I love to see other people's recommendations too. And different publications offer different things, I think. So if you don't know where to start, I would say look up some of those guides, because they tend to have really good recommendations.
Kimberly, I'm curious, you talked about wine country. Do you have like, where do you start with wine country, with exploring that? What is your strategy there?
So I haven't explored it yet. I think what I'm looking forward to doing is seeing what kind of wine is grown locally, just because I'm not like too knowledgeable about what exactly the process is here. And especially as the summers sort of heat up here, or there's also a great amount of wildfires happening. I'm actually curious to see what they're able to make here. And I'm just looking forward to exploring just more of the state through that way. I think I'm appreciative of Eddie's, outdoor knowledge, because it is kind of inspiring to hear you talk about some of these places and making me realize, there's so much more that I can be exploring just outside of the Portland bubble.
Definitely. We also talk about, on other episodes, a lot about the public transportation aspect. It is hard to get around to a lot of places in Oregon, but there's definitely a good train system that goes down the coast. There's a lot of buses that will get you to places like Astoria and Bend, and I took a bus to Salem last week. So those are also very like low cost options to get around and explore a new place. And even Salem, you just pop out right in the center of downtown on that bus that I took, and I was able to like walk around the city, and I've never seen Salem like that. So I thought that was just a really cool thing to be able to do for myself too, to get to know another Oregon city that I don't have too much experience in.
Totally. I do want to give one plug for wine tasting, one recommendation, take it or leave it. I do know it's not for everybody. I really recommend doing the spitting with wine tasting. I know you gave me such a face. I know it feels gross, but like I did it one time doing I was doing wine tasting for work, and I was like, I can't go to 5 wineries in a day and drive and be like, conscious. So I was like, they have the little buckets, the spittoons there, like the serious wine tasters do. And I was like, let me give it a try. And I loved it. You do get the same experience, but you don't get drunk, right? You don't have the adverse effects of all the alcohol. So it allows you to actually do more and more tasting. Because if you're actually drinking, I don't know, you can do, I don't know about you all, but like one winery and I'm done. That's it. I'm good. And you need like a designated driver and all this stuff, but the spitting does allow you, I know it's gross, I know, but it does allow you to do wine tasting in a different and more advanced level that I really love now. That's the way I do wine tasting at this point.
I mean, that's fair. I don't know how many people are going to multiple wineries in one day.
Well, if you want to see it all, that's the thing. If you want to truly experience Willamette Valley wine country, there's I don't know how many wineries out there.
Tons, yeah.
30, 50, 60, I don't know. There's a lot. So if you want to try a couple in a day, it's just putting it out there. Take it or leave it. My 2 cents.
Thank you for that one. So, kind of jumping back, y'all give us some great recommendations. I appreciate you guys thinking about that and really, telling the people what they can do. So, kind of final question for y'all. Like, what would you take a friend to do if you had one full day in Oregon? This is the perfect day. What's your ideal day looking like? And we'll start with Eddie. Let me know what you think you would want to do with a friend.
Oh my goodness, that's a tough question. I think I would take them out to the Oregon coast. Not so close, but it's relatively close to wherever. If you're in the Willamette Valley here in Portland, it's not that far of a drive. Down in Salem, it's not that far of a drive. So you can head out there early in the morning, do some beach walking, maybe do some hiking in a state park, go into one of these towns and find some local seafood or local, it doesn't have to be seafood, but local food. There are some really, really great food options in basically every small town on the Oregon coast or big town that I've been in. And then, spend some more time on the beach, and then head back into the Willamette Valley. I think that if you're looking for a single day activity and you're looking to step outside of the city, one of the best places you can do that is out on the coast.
Hard agree. That's great.
That sounds like perfect day. Let's see if you could top it, Kimberly.
I don't know if I can top that, but if you are in the city, first things first, you need to get brunch somewhere. There's so many good brunch places in so many cities. Go and get brunch. Go and take a walk along some sort of river, water near you. Could even be the coast. But in the afternoon, pick a neighborhood, pick a part of the city that you want to explore, and just walk around, see what you find. You can find shops, you can eat, you can get a drink, and that's just such a great way to see so much in one day.
Wow, that's a great day also.
I love how these can overlap too.
Yes.
I feel like you could definitely do all of them at one day. Get brunch, go on a hike, explore a city. Possibilities are endless.
These long days of summer, you can do all kinds of stuff.
Oh my gosh, yeah. With 9 p.m. sunsets, the day never ends.
Okay, Kiara, what about you? What's your go-to day trip for someone from out of town?
Oh my gosh. I'm also a big water person. I think ideally I would love to take someone to go swimming in a creek somewhere. There's one that I really like. I haven't been to a ton, but I guess this is technically in Washington, but it's called Pothole Falls in the Camas area. There's definitely options like this all over the state too, but you kind of do a little hike and then you pop out at a creek and you can kind of go swimming there. I've done it where I brought a picnic basically, and you just picnic on these rocks on top of a waterfall, and it's so beautiful, so gorgeous, so quintessentially Oregon. You eat your little snacks, you bring a book. I've, just hung out there for hours, and it's amazing. And then kind of head back into town. And after that, like all the sun and excitement of that, have like a really good meal somewhere, like some place that you've never been to, and try something new, because I love trying new places. So I think that kind of sounds like the perfect day for me. And it would be really hot too. It would be like one of those really hot Oregon summer days, so that you can really enjoy all that the waterfalls and swimming has to offer.
I love that. Downtown Camas is also very cute.
Yes.
There's a great breakfast spot there. There's some fun little shops. That's you can do a complete day in Camas.
Definitely. I think that'll be, I'm going to have to put that in my calendar. Now that I've envisioned it, I've like manifested it. So I have to put it into reality.
Yeah, for sure.
And you, Jamie, any perfect summer days for you?
What I like to do when I have someone from out of town coming in and they're in town for like a day or two, I always am like, okay, so what are you looking for? What kind of experience? Do you want ocean? Do you want forest? Do you want mountain? Do you want desert? No one picks desert, even though it's really cool. They just, I think, don't think about it, especially people coming from like the East Coast. They don't know that there's desert here. So they are like, it's too intimidating. I don't understand. But from there, we just kind of build a day. Like I had some friends in recently who just wanted like a close-in hike and something good to eat. And so we went to Oxbow Park along the Sandy River, and we went to Sugar Pine after. Easy. That's a great day. And we came back into Portland and we made some dinner and we just hung out at home. And that was a great day for them. But I've had a friend, who said, I want to go to the ocean. I got to see the beach. And so we went out to Astoria. We did shopping. We did bopped around all the little shops at Astoria. Then we went out to Fort Stevens, hung out on the beach for a while, and then drove back to Portland. So it's like, I like to ask people like, what is your vibe? Because there's, as we said at the top, so many different types of ways to experience Oregon, especially in the summer. You can go anywhere. You can even do some skiing at some points in the summer if you want.
That's true.
So, I mean, it's really about like give them the options and then say, what do you want to do?
Yeah. I love that idea of asking people for a certain vibe too. Because yeah, you're right. There's some people may not be into swimming, even though I certainly am. And I would make anybody go swimming with me, regardless of what they're hoping for. They're going to love it.
Well, so many good recommendations. I think, folks who are coming in and trying to have a perfect Oregon summer have a lot to work with here. So Eddie, Kimberly, thank you so much for coming on and helping us out today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, folks, that will do it for us. But until next time, you can watch our videos on the Oregonians YouTube channel and view all of our travel and outdoors coverage on OregonLive.com/travel, as well as HereIsOregon.com.
Please leave us a rating or review if you enjoy the show. And if you want to support this podcast as well as our local journalism, please consider a subscription to Oregon Live. You can find the details at OregonLive.com/subscribe. Also, if you're a fan of the show and you're interested in potentially sponsoring it, you can get in touch with our marketing people at advertise@oregonian.com. This episode of the show was produced by me alongside Jamie Hale and Vicky Connor.
Stay safe and happy travels, everyone. Until next time, we leave you with this 10 seconds of Zen.